Kyom Vishnupad Paramahansa Parijakacharya Ashto Shadri Shrimad Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Sri Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Beauty Founder Acharya Shringo. All glories to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 5, chapter number 2, verse number 1. I don't think so there is a meter to chant this verse, but we will give our try. Śrī Śukadeva evaṁ pitari sampravṛtte tad-anuśāsane vartamāna āgnīdhro jambūdvīpaukasaḥ prajā aurasavad dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ paryagopāyat Śrī Śukadeva evaṁ pitari sampravṛtte tad-anuśāsane vartamāna āgnīdhro jambūdvīpaukasaḥ prajā aurasavad dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ paryagopāyat Śrī Śukadeva evaṁ pitari sampravṛtte tad-anuśāsane vartamāna āgnīdhro jambūdvīpaukasaḥ prajā aurasavad dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ paryagopāyat. Please. Śrī Śukadeva evaṁ pitari sampravṛtte anuśāsane vartamāna āgnīdhro dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ paryagopāyat Śrī Śukadeva evaṁ pitari sampravṛtte tad-anuśāsane vartamāna āgnīdhro prajā aurasavad dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ paryagopāyat. What two word meaning? Śrī Śukadeva, Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī, uvāca said, evaṁ thus, pitari when his father, pravrtte took to the path of liberation, tad-anuśāsane according to his order, vartamāna situated, Āgnīdhra King Āgnīdhra Jambūdvīpaukasaḥ the inhabitants of Jambūdvīpa, prajā citizens, aurasavad as if they were his sons. dharma, religious principles, āvekṣamāṇaḥ, strictly observing, paryagopāyat, completely protected. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued. After his father, Mahārāja Priyavrata departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities. King Āgnīdhra completely obeyed his order. Strictly observing the principles of religion, he gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambūdvīpa as if they were his own begotten sons. Please translate responsibly. Śrī Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued. After his father Mahārāja Priyavrata departed to follow the path of spiritual life by undergoing austerities, King Āgnīdhra completely obeyed his order. Strictly observing the principles of religion, he gave full protection to the inhabitants of Jambūdvīpa as if they were his own begotten son. Purport. Following the instruction of his father Mahārāja Priyavrata, Mahārāja Āgnīdhra ruled the inhabitants of Jambūdvīpa. According to religious principle, these principles are exactly contrary to the modern principle of faithlessness. As clearly stated here, the king protected the citizens the way a father protects his begotten children. How he ruled the citizens is also described here, dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ, strictly according to the religious principles. It is the duty of the executive head of a state to see that the citizens strictly follow religious principles. The Vedic religious principles begin with varna-ashrama dharma, the duties of the 4 varnas and 4 ashramas. Dharma refers to principle given by Supreme Personality of Godhead. The first principle of dharma or religion is to observe the duties of the 4 orders as enjoyed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. According to people's qualities and activities, society should be divided into brahmanas, kshatriyas, vaishyas and sudras, and then again into brahmacharis, garastas, vanaprasthas and sannyasis. These are religious principles, and it is the duty of the head of the state to see that his citizens strictly follow them. He should not merely act officially. He should be like a father who is always a well-wisher of his sons. Such a father strictly observes whether his sons are performing their duties, and sometimes he also punishes them. Just contrary to the principles mentioned here, the presidents and the chief executives in the age of Kali are simply tax collectors who do not care whether religious principles are observed. Indeed, the chief executives of the present day introduce all kinds of sinful activity, especially illicit sex, intoxication, animal killing, and gambling. These sinful activities are now very prominently manifested in India. Although 100 years ago, these 4 principles of sinful life were strictly prohibited in the families of India, they have now been introduced into every Indian family. Therefore, they cannot follow religious principle. In contrast to the principle of the kings of old, the modern state is concerned only with propaganda for levying taxes and is no longer responsible for the spiritual welfare of the citizens. The state is now careless to religious principle. Srimad Bhagavatam predicts that in Kali Yuga, the government will be entrusted with dasyu dharma, which means the occupational duty of rogues and thieves. Modern heads of state are rogues and thieves who plunder the citizen instead of giving them protection. Rogues and thieves plunder without regard for law. But in the age of Kali, as stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, the lawmakers themselves plunders the citizen. The next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of the sinful activities of the citizens and the government, rain will become increasingly scarce. Gradually, there will be complete drought and no production of food grains. People will be reduced to eating flesh and seeds, and many good, spiritually inclined people will have to forsake their homes because they will be too harassed by drought, taxation, and famine. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. Om Ajnānatimirandasya Jnānanjana Shalakaya Chakshuanmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnbandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Shri Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishwabhanu Sute Devi Pramamami Hari Priye. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashyate Deshatarni. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Shri Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are going to start chapter 2, which is the activity of Mahārāja Āgnīdhra. As we all know, Swambhuva Manu, in a previous canto, he had 2 sons and 3 daughters, and Priyavrata was the eldest son. But by his good fortune, he met Shri Nada Muni, and he took up the path of spiritual life, bhakti straight away, because he doesn't want to get involved into the family affair or the managing this world. But Swambhuva Manu allowed him, and he gave the kingdom to his younger brother Uttanapada. And as we all know, the Canto 4 finishes all the descendants of Uttanapada till Prachetas. And now again, this world is barren of a good king. And then Mahārāja Priyavrata was alone there in the mind of Swambhuva Manu. Swambhuva Manu thought, I have my elder son, so why don't I go and approach him? And he did approach him. But out of his staunch bhakti, he was refusing his father's order. But as we all know in the previous verses how the story goes ahead, Brahmaji comes, because Brahma is the main head of the universal affair. If any issues happen, Lord Brahma comes and he sort it out. And being respected to his grandfather, Priyavrata Maharaj, he obeyed his order with so much honor. And there's a very beautiful thing, I liked it very much, where Lord Brahmaji, he says, my son, you have practiced this bhakti yoga for so many years, you have controlled your senses. Don't think you're going to fall into the ditch of this material world, because you have controlled your senses. He says, whether a person, he lives in a forest or lives in a household life, if his senses are controlled, it doesn't make any sense to him. It will not bother him at all. But the person who falsely renounces the world and goes to the forest, but he's going along with the 6 wives, his 5 knowledge-acquiring senses and his mind, so they will bother him. But now you are such a controlled person, I'll bless you. You go and take care of this affair, managing the whole world. And I bless you that you will always remember the lotus feet of Lord Shri Hari while performing your duty. And now, as the story goes ahead, Priyavrata Maharaj, one time he saw this sun. He was orbiting around the planet and he didn't like it. He says, when the sun is in the south side, north is dark. When it's in the north side, south is dark. So I should do something. So he took his chariot, very wonderful golden chariot. But by the rim of that wheeled chariot, he created 7 beautiful dvipas, island, and 7 oceans. And Mahārāja Priyavrata, he married 2 queens. One queen's name was Brahaspati. And he begot 10 sons and 1 daughter. And out of those 10 sons, 3 sons, they become sannyasis. They became paramahamsas. So now the 7 sons left. And with the second wife, he begot 3 sons, which was Uttama, Revata, and Tamasa. They became the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th Manus of the millennium. And now the 7 sons left, so he divided those 7 dvipas among his 7 sons, and he took up the spiritual life, took up the retirement, and he went for the spiritual life being so serious. And now, one dvipa called Jambūdvīpa, which he gave to his elder son Āgnīdhra. Now, as we go forward with this canto, as the chapter moving forward, we'll see the Āgnīdhra son will be King Nabha, King Nabha's son will be Lord Rishabdev, and then Bharat Maharaj, so and so. But now, here, when we are going to hear the activities of Āgnīdhra from this verse, Mahārāja Priyavrata, the way he set up the example in the society, his sons, the elder son, Āgnīdhra, is exactly following the same path of his father. And what Srila Prabhupada says? King Āgnīdhra completely obeyed his order, means his father's order, strictly observing the principle of religion. That is the actual duty of the ideal king. In the purport of Srila Prabhupada has written 2 paragraphs, and the first paragraph he is mentioning about the ideal king, and the second, how does this modern age so-called leaders, they are lacking of fulfilling their duties, being as a leader. So now, Srila Prabhupada, he used one word here, dharmāvekṣamāṇaḥ, means strictly according to the religious principle. Why is that so? Because ideal king, first of all, if somebody wants to become a leader, the first qualification is he must be a staunch follower of the Vedas. He must have studied and practiced under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Then how he can rule the world, he can protect it. Second was that he must be a good protector, giving a full protection to his citizen, not even materially, spiritually also. And the third is he must be a most powerful where he can punish the rogues and the thieves here. So now Srila Prabhupada is telling in the first verse regarding this dharma. Now what is dharma? Now being as a human being, all of us said, what is dharma? The dharma, Canto 1, Chapter 2, the Divinity and Divine Consciousness, verse number 6, which is a very famous verse in our ISKCON, Savai pumso paro dharmo, yatho bhaktir adhokshaje, ahyotiki apritihata, yayatma suprasiddhiti. Savai pumso, savai means all, pumso means all mankind or human. Savai pumso paro, supreme dharma. The supreme dharma of all the humanity, of all the mankind is what? Yato bhaktir adhokshaje. Adhokshaja, here the Lord's another name is Adhokshaja. Akshaja means the measuring of our senses, and Adhokshaja means the beyond the measurement of our senses. So do the bhakti, the greatest occupation of all the living entity is to do bhakti. Not just normal devotional service, loving devotional service, rendering loving devotional service. And that loving devotional service has to be ahyutiki and aprihata, uninterrupted and unmotivated. But when we do uninterrupted and unmotivated, yayatma suprasiddhiti, the self gets satisfied. So that's where, that is the highest standard that we have to render a loving devotional service to the Supreme Lord. But to come to that level, there are many steps to follow. So that's where Srila Prabhupada is saying the first principle of the dharma is to go into the varna ashrama dharma. Here, let me read out. The first principle of dharma or religion is to observe the duties of the 4 orders as enjoined by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna himself says, Chatur Vanyam Maya Shrishtam Guna Karma Vibhagasa. Chaturvarnyam, these 4 divisions of society, maya shrishtam, I have created it. According to what? Guna and karma. These 4 ashramas, which are brahmacharya, grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyasa, and furthermore, that it goes to brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, and shudra, they are the safety net of human being. That is the duty of the ideal king. Make sure he establish the law and order in the society, especially of the spiritual life. Make sure everybody recognize according to their own nature, and they accept a particular ashrama and particular dharma. And even in the previous chapter, where the activities of Mahārāja Priyavrata, the Lord Brahma himself was telling to follow Mahārāja Priyavrata a proper varnashrama dharma, which is in text 14 here. Let me read the translation for you. My dear boy, all of us are bound by the Vedic injunction to the divisions of varnashrama according to our qualities and work. These divisions are difficult to avoid because they are scientifically arranged. We must therefore carry out our duties of varnashrama dharma like bulls obliged to move according to the direction of a driver pulling on ropes knotted to their noses. See how beautifully it has been mentioned here. Lord himself is saying in Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. And here Lord Brahma, who is the great devotee of Lord Krishna, he himself is repeating that it's a scientific arrangement done by the Lord himself. Even though if you see in Bhagavad Gita, the kings are meant to establish the dharma in the society, not the sannyasis or vanaprasthas there. Because Bhagavad Gita is spoken to whom? Arjuna. By occupation, he was a kshatriya. He was a kshatriya because that's his duty. That's his duty to establish the dharma. And in the chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, Transcendental Knowledge, the first verse is Bhagavan says, evaṁ vivasvate yogam proktavan aham avyam vivasvan manve parha manur ikshvakeya brit. Oh Arjuna, you are a kshatriya and you need to establish this dharma. Don't neglect your duty. Please move ahead. And I told the same science of this bhakti yoga first of all to Vivasvan, who is the sun god, and he gave to his son Manu, and Manu gave to Ikshvaku, and so it is coming forward. But these Kshatriyas, they don't act independently. They act under the guidance of a great Brahmanas, who are the staunch followers of the Bhakti Yogas. Because the meant of all this Varna Ashrama Dharma to elevate our consciousness to the spiritual consciousness. Actually, in our society, here in ISKCON society, many devotees, they lack of their immaturity or lack of understanding of the Shastras, they do glorify their ashramas, which is fair. You meant to glorify your ashramas when you are strictly following it. Someone says brahmacharya ashrama is very great, it's very safe. Someone says householder life is very safe. Someone says vanaprastha is very safe. Someone says sannyasa is very safe. But let's see all the sages, what Srimad Bhagavatam is saying. No ashrama is safe unless you don't remember Krishna in any of the ashramas. Because these ashramas are meant to give us a protection, to help us to recognize our own nature, our own quality, and help each other. Suppose Grahastha ashrama is meant to support brahmacharis and other ashramas. And sannyasa is also there, meant to give the guidance to all the other 3 ashramas. So there is a brahmacharya ashrama meant to serve all the 3 ashramas. So every ashrama has its own strict duties to follow it. No one can neglect it. Because by following the duty, we come into the regularity where we can start worshipping the Lord and we get purify ourselves. Even in Canto 11, Uddhava Gita, where Lord Krishna himself is telling to Uddhava, even though our main purpose is to render devotional service, but there are some hidden fruitive desires are there in the heart. somewhere in the core of the heart. Until unless a person does not come to the platform of having the taste of hearing, remembering, doing kirtana, this person has to follow the varna ashrama dharma or follow the prescribed duty very, very strictly. Because of the person, if he sticks with his ashrama, it will definitely, as a period of time, if he's sincere, if he's honest, if he's sincere and is so determined to get the Krishna, Krishna will help him from all the way. He can go to any extent. But being as a leader, it's not so easy. That's where Mahārāja Swayambhuva Manu, when there was a post empty for the king, Uttanapada went away, his descendants went away. He approached that Priyavrata Mahārāja. Priyavrata was totally a Naistika brahmachari. He doesn't have to all do these things. But Lord Brahma says, my dear Priyavrata, don't be envious of the Lord Shri Hari. And he said, hang on, he was worshipping the Lord Shri Hari. How come he'll be envious? That means, please don't neglect the order of Lord Shri Hari or his devotees. You are already surpassed all these three modes of material nature. Just take it as a service. Don't get hesitant. Nothing will happen to you. And now, that's what in Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada said, it is the duty of the king, make sure he becomes strict to all the rules. If someone is doing any disturbance in the society, he must be capable to punish it. Not just out of envy, not at all. A true king is not an envy. Why? Because in the verse it says, he was treating his inhabitants like his own begotten sons. When a father, when he chastises his sons, it does not mean that he's envy or he wants to just kill the child. No, he just wants to rectify the child. In India, it says, I just heard it one time, one father was beating to his son, and people came and they said, why you are beating your son? He said, he's doing some mistakes, so I have to correct him. If I will not correct him now, if I will not beat him now for his mistakes, later on, the whole world will beat him. So better I should beat him now for his correction. Why? Because later on, he will become a rogue and a thief, then he will not be corrected. It says that there is an example when the plant is small, a little bit, his stems are very, very soft. You can mold it anyway. It will be molded, and nothing will happen to the plant because it's in a growing stage. But the same plant, when it becomes a big tree, and then you see, if you're trying to mold it, what will happen? It will die. It will crack. In the same way, when the children are in a small age, a growing age, learning age, if you mold in a whichever way, they will be molded. A good way or a bad way. But if you try to do the same thing when they have been grown up, with all those bad qualities which has been deep-rooted in their heart so strongly, and if you're trying to rectify them, it becomes so hard. And we have seen in our, life in India or here also, if the children has not been chastised in the early age of doing their mischievous activity, you can see they have been carried forward. And they create a great havoc to the family, to themselves, to the society. And the same thing happening here. That is the ideal king. The ideal king not only look after the children, which is he thinks his citizens are his children, that he meant to provide them the spiritual proper knowledge. And now, in the paragraph 2, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning what is the condition of this modern society when they are not following the Vedic scriptures. Because the leader themselves are not practicing any spiritual life, not following the scriptures. What will happen to them? How the society will be looking like? The Lord Krishna answers this question in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 16, verse number 23. Yah shastra vidim utrasajya vartate kam krataha na sa siddhim avapnoti na sukham na param gatim. Yah shastra vidim, the person who has Utrasija means discards. The person who has discarded the Vedic injunction, and what he does after that, vartate kam krataha. He acts whimsically out of his own lust. And what will happen to that person if he acts whimsically? Na siddhim. He does not get the success in the society. Na siddhim avapnoti na sukham. He doesn't get the happiness. And not a param gating, not a great supreme destination. He becomes frustrated. So that's what's happening here. These so-called Kali Yuga leaders, they only meant to collect the taxes from their innocent citizens. And in return, they give a false promises that we will protect you. And we can see, since the time has been gone through, we have seen many incidences. In previous verse, if you see, those ideal kings, they has been chosen by their own qualities, by the great brahmanas, by the great sages. By seeing their good qualities, yes, he is a great person. He himself is practicing, he is learning, he is teaching others. He can be our leader. But here, these people who's been chosen as a leader, either giving a bribe to the citizen. Okay, I'll give you a bottle of liquor. I'll give you some money. Please vote for me. And when I'll become, then I'll protect you. And we can see how much protection is there. Nothing. If anything's happening in the society, first they themselves get the Y security, Z security, and they hide themselves. But this type of ideal king like Mahārāja Priyavrata and Mahārāja Āgnīdhra, they are always upfront. If they make some promises, they make sure they fulfill it. And this type of bogus leader of this modern society, as you can see, Srila Prabhupada is writing here, they are encouraging people to do all those 4 principles that Shastra has prohibited all of us to do it. Because these sinful activities are the big obstacles on the path of our spiritual life. Illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, gambling. Let's take an example here. If the person who himself is addicted to all these qualities, if you make him a leader, what kind of rules he will pass in the society? Same, where he himself can enjoy. He can allow, okay, open more bottle shops, open more pubs, restaurants, brothels. Because that's what people has chosen him to do it. Because they just want to enjoy every single corner. There must be a liquor shop. There must be a slaughterhouses. So all these stuff's here. That's why people has been so frustrated. So frustrated of this life. One time one journalist asked Srila Prabhupada that actually Srila Prabhupada says there was a chaos maybe in World War II or something was happening. He says, what happened to your technology? Why you are not giving all these people to eat nuts and bolts? If you're saying you have advanced so much in technology. Even if we calculate that same time in today's time, which is we are going through this pandemic, COVID-19 here, as soon as the lockdown happens, any citizen has run to car showroom to buy cars, to buy laptops, phone or any gadget. Everybody was running to the grocery supermarket because that is the highest need over there. That is the actual higher need over there. As you can see, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport here that the next prediction to be fulfilled, which is already coming to pass, is that because of sinful activities of the citizen and government, rain will become increasingly scarce. And there will be a scarcity of food and grains. Srimad Bhagavatam has predicted so many predictions for this Kali Yuga. And that has been fulfilled. Because it's the words of the Lord Shri Krishna. It has been fulfilled and there are many more to come. We can see even a little bit of scarcity of food and grains here. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, Lord Krishna himself says that food and grain comes from rain. And the rain comes from doing yajna, sacrifices. And the sacrifices comes while performing prescribed duties. That's where here Lord is saying everybody must have to follow their varnashrama dharma, doing strictly observing the prescribed duty. And the prescribed duty comes from Veda. And the Veda comes from directly manifesting from Lord Shri Hari. And that's the solution Srila Prabhupada has given. The Krishna consciousness movement is the only hope to save the world from such devastation. It is the most scientific and authorized movement for the actual welfare of the whole human society. Because there is a missing of spiritual life, there is a missing of Krishna consciousness. That's why we are saying that people are not happy at all. In one of the beautiful pastime, when Mahārāja Yudhishthira, he sends Arjuna to get the information of Yadus, especially Lord Krishna. And when Arjuna got delayed for 2-3 months, and Mahārāja Yudhishthira, he start realizing some ill omens around him. He said to Bhima, Bhima, I can see the jackals are vomiting fire. The cows are passing maybe left or right. And so many other things he was saying. That dogs are barking at me. People are not respecting the elders. So that is mean that Krishna has left the planet. Arjuna, he usually comes so early, but it's been 3 months, he hasn't come out. Why these all bad things happen in the society or in our life where we are not happy at all? Because that is the absence of Krishna. That's where Mahārāja Yudhishthira immediately realized, oh, I think Krishna has left the planet. Krishna has left the planet. That's why these all things are happening. At the same question we hear in Canto 1, where all the 88,000 sages of Naimisharanya, one very beautiful question asked to Sutta Gosvāmī. That was the 6th question. When Lord Krishna left, where did the dharma took the shelter? And the answer to that, Krishna swadhamo upagate dharma jnana adhibhisaha kalau nashta drisha esha puranarko adinoditaha. Krishna swadhamo upagate. Krishna went to his own abode, and dharma and jnana, they accompanied along with him. Kalau drishta. In the darkness age of this Kali Yuga, where people, they cannot find anything, they can't see anything good. So this Purana ko adinoditaha, this Srimad Bhagavatam will become a light torch in their life, and they will show them the path where they can progress. So this Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna has left behind him in the form of his literal incarnation here, in the form of scripture, that we all have to take the shelter and introduce Krishna in our life. We can avoid it. So this is the duty Srila Prabhupada has given or left on all of us, that we must go out and educate all these leaders, those who are bereft of the actual supreme knowledge. That's why they are not able to provide the solution of the problems of their citizens. Becoming a king, becoming a leader, is that not so easy? It has a great responsibility. Even later on some chapters in Lord Rishabhdeva's teaching, he says, we should not become a father, mother, teacher, or a leader, that if we are not able to relieve our dependence from the clutches of these material pangs. It is a very, very heavy responsibility. So that everybody, we must have to take the shelter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of the process that Srila Prabhupada has given, especially chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which itself purifies the whole world if we chant with the pure sincerity and determination, and plus encourage others also. So that's where Srila Prabhupada has mentioned and enlightening us from this verse, that must take the shelter of varnashrama dharma, be honest with yourself, and practice strictly, and help each other supporting each other materially, spiritually, and move ahead from this material life. And so far this verse, Maharaj Āgnīdhra has not married yet, and we'll see what will unfold in next pages or next verses, so which will be spoken by next speaker here. So I would like to stop here, and if is there any questions, comments, chastisement, anything. Yes, Prabhu.
So, Prabhu, earlier the kings or leaders were appointed by someone who is higher.
Yes.
Priyavrata.
Yes.
Lord Brahma himself came and encouraged him to take up the leadership.
Yes. Yes.
Of course, now it is the reverse.
Yes.
So, no saint is actually going and voting for selection of leaders, but the other people, all the lowly people are the ones who really vote and
Yes.
they select leader.
Yes.
So, therefore, that is what you get back.
Yes.
So, it's very hard to select because
It's, yeah, bro, it's very hard to bring those saintly people now from that time, but the beauty is the people of this Kali Yuga themselves, they want to go for sense enjoyment unrestrictedly. So they choose their leaders like that. That's why Srila Prabhupada has opened this movement here. Please educate those people. They are not knowing what is the purpose of a human life. We are not like cats and dogs. The enjoyment we are hankering after, and struggling so hard to have that little bit of enjoyment for a little bit of time, that enjoyment, it is easily available in animal form without any hard work. So that is all cause that we need to educate them. First educate ourselves, and then educate them one by one. So that is a responsibility other sages has dropped on our shoulder. And we need to carry on the legacy and teach upcoming generation also. So when we will leave, so they can carry forward and they can preach as much as. That's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has opened. This is a preaching mission, not a sitting mission. We learn, we go ahead and preach. Yes. Okay, if there are no question, I would like to stop here. Granthārāj Śrīmad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna Prabhupada ki jai.